This video is available in both English and Hindi. Please find the link in description. Hello everyone. This is the second video of the UNCRPD series. It is in continuation with our previous video on Introduction to UNCRPD. It will be useful to go through that first to understand the concepts in totality. UNCRPD has a preamble and 50 articles. This video discusses the preamble and articles 1 to 9, which are more of introductory articles defining the purpose, principles, and basic terms and provisions of the convention. Let's understand the preamble first. Any legal document, be it a constitution or a convention, begins with a preamble. Preamble is an introduction to the document that helps understand why the document was created and what were the ideas behind it. The preamble of the UNCRPD explains the purpose behind the convention, which is protecting the rights of persons with disabilities, including women and children with disabilities. It recognizes that persons with disabilities have the same human rights and freedoms as everyone else. It highlights the importance of dignity, equality, non-discrimination, and full participation of persons with disabilities in society. The main thought of UNCRPD is that disability is not caused by an impairment, but by the attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinder the full and effective participation of the people with impairment in society on an equal basis with others. The preamble stresses the need for international cooperation for protection of rights of persons with disabilities in all areas of life. Now we'll understand each article one by one. Article 1, it defines the purpose of the document. But we saw that the purpose was already mentioned in the preamble. Then why the need to restate it? This is because preamble is generally not legally binding, which means that there is no obligation on countries to implement it. But provisions in articles are mandatory or legally binding. So as we understood from the preamble, the purpose of this document is to make sure persons with disabilities enjoy the same human rights and freedoms as everyone else. For example, a student with blindness should have the same chance to study, travel, work, just like other students. UNCRPD acknowledges that dignity is inherent. That is, it is from birth. It is not something that is given to a person by someone else. It just needs to be respected. A point to be noted in this article is that UNCRPD does not define any disabling condition, but just outlines who has a right to be protected by this convention. If you see the definition, it says, persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, but which in interaction with various barriers hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. A risk of defining disabilities was that there was a chance of unintentionally excluding some people. So no disabling conditions were defined in this document. Coming to Article 2, Article 2 gives us definitions of 5 terms. And you will see that these definitions actually broaden and enrich our understanding of diversity in humans. Coming to the first definition, which is communication. The definition of communication includes a wide range of human communication skills like languages, text, braille, tactile communication, the one you can touch and communicate, large print, spoken language, sign language, AAC, which is augmentative and alternate communication. These are the methods and devices used by people who have difficulty speaking. And it also includes communication technology. Similarly, the definition of language includes both spoken and sign languages and even other forms of non-spoken languages. Third term is discrimination on the basis of disability. It is any distinction, means any different treatment, exclusion, or when you deny access or participation to a person, or restriction, where you limit the freedom of a person, that impairs the enjoyment of right and freedom like others. For example, a school refusing admission to a child who can't speak. Here the child is being excluded from the education system. Or a person using wheelchair is not invited to an office picnic simply because the person cannot walk like others. So a different treatment here is being meted out to the person with disability. The definition of discrimination also includes denial of reasonable accommodation. So now let's understand, what does this mean? Reasonable accommodation means making necessary and appropriate modification and adjustments to enable persons with disabilities to exercise their basic human rights. For example, giving extra time during exams for students with disabilities, providing wheelchair accessible toilets in buildings, providing sign language interpreters for people with hearing impairment, or offering study material in braille or audio format for visually impaired people, reserving accessible seating in public transport or events. If you notice, these simple accommodations do not put any undue burden on any person or system. Next term is universal design. Universal design is the idea of creating products, buildings, technology, and experiences that work well for as many people as possible without needing special adaptation later. If you see in this first picture, a wooden plank has been attached to the entrance of a bus to make it possible for a person using wheelchair to board it. This is a change or an adaptation that has been made to the bus to make it accessible. But in the second picture, this provision is in the design itself, so that no adaptation is required later. This kind of design is called universal design. Universal design is beneficial for all. For example, automatic doors help wheelchair users, but also delivery workers and parents with strollers alike. Similarly, captions on videos help deaf users and also people watching the videos in noisy places. Or curb cuts on sidewalks help wheelchair users, cyclists, travelers with luggage, and elderly people equally. Voice assistants help visually impaired users and also people while driving. Adjustable desks provide comfort to people with different needs. A good universal design usually feels natural rather than special. Coming to Article 3, it outlines the general principles of the convention. Usually, principles of a convention are placed only in a preamble, which, as we shared earlier, is not legally binding. That is why UNCRPD has included them as a separate article to make it mandatory for state parties to implement them. General principles are the basic ideas of a convention. And so for UNCRPD, they are respect for inherent dignity. We discussed this in Article 1 as well. Freedom to make one's choices. That is, persons with disability must have freedom to decide for themselves rather than others deciding for them. Complete non-discrimination. Full and effective participation and inclusion in society. And this is an important point. Acceptance of persons with disabilities as part of human diversity. As we know, every person is unique in their appearance and the ways in which they fulfill their needs. This is how even persons with disability form a diverse and natural part of the society. An impairment does not make anyone less important. Equality of opportunity and also equality between men and women. This means a company must hire employees based on skills, irrespective of disability or gender. Accessibility and respect for evolving capacities of children with disabilities. Evolving capacities refers to the constantly growing skills of a child. As all of us know, children have very strong ability to learn and grow. So they must be provided with the right opportunities to be able to realize their full potential. Article 4 deals with general obligations, means what should the state parties do to ensure full realization of all the rights given by UNCRPD. The first and most important step is that they must align their laws with UNCRPD to ensure the protection of rights of people with disability. Second, they must make required changes in their existing laws to eliminate any unfair provisions. Complete non-discrimination must be ensured in both public and private sectors. They must promote accessibility to information about assistive devices, new technology, and support services. Promote development and use of universally designed goods at affordable costs. Adults and children with disabilities must be consulted before making any decisions regarding issues related to them. And this can also be done through their representative organizations. And the last but a very important point, that state parties must train professionals and staff working with people with disabilities on the principles of UNCRPD. Article 5 talks of equality and non-discrimination. Discrimination is of two types: direct and indirect. Direct discrimination is when a person is directly and intentionally involved in treating someone less favorably than others. Example, a school rejects a child just because the child has autism. So this is direct discrimination. Indirect discrimination happens when there is a neutral provision, a neutral rule, which is same for everyone, but it puts a person with disability at a disadvantage as compared to others. For example, a child using wheelchair cannot access the school library because the library is on second floor and there is no lift or ramp in the school. To ensure equality and non-discrimination for persons with disability, countries agree that everyone is equal under law, discrimination against people with disability will not be allowed, and reasonable accommodations will be provided wherever needed. For example, a blind person will have to be provided a computer system at workplace to enable the person to work effectively. The UNCRPD recognizes that women and children with disabilities are more vulnerable due to their gender and age respectively. They face multiple discrimination. To ensure that the state parties give special attention to their specific issues, UNCRPD includes two separate articles for them. Article 6 regarding rights of women with disabilities and Article 7 regarding children with disabilities. Article 6, Women with Disabilities. Women with disabilities face multiple discrimination in the sense that there is an increased rate of institutionalization as compared to men. That is, they are left in care homes or asylums away from their family. They are also made to undergo sterilization without their consent. They have very poor access to health programs and face more chances of poverty. Preamble mentions this issue. Women and girls with disabilities are often at greater risk, both within and outside home, of violence, injury, abuse, neglect, negligent treatment, maltreatment, or exploitation. Article 3, General Principles, talks of equality between men and women. This article urges state parties to protect the rights of women with disabilities and ensure their full development, advancement, and empowerment. Article 7 deals with rights of children with disabilities, and it talks of their best interest. It states that children with disabilities have the same rights as all other children. And while making decisions, the best interest of a child shall be of primary consideration. Children with disabilities have the right to be heard on all matters that can affect them. Appropriate assistance based on their age and disability to be provided to children to help realize this right. So, a child with cerebral palsy has full right to be allowed to play, learn, and participate in school activities and be provided with the required assistance for the same. Enjoyment of the same rights and freedoms by persons with disabilities, just as others, is only possible in a society which is more aware, sensitive, and inclusive. It is very important that an impairment does not become a person's identity. Instead, society must recognize and value the individual's abilities, talents, and contributions. When people look beyond the condition and respect the person for who they are, true inclusion and equality become possible. And to enable this, we have Article 8, Awareness Raising. Awareness raising says that it has to happen both at the level of society and family. What is the aim? The aim is to combat stereotypes, prejudices, and harmful practices prevailing in the society relating to persons with disabilities. And the aim is also to emphasize the abilities of persons with disabilities. And how one must do that? Through public awareness campaigns, using media, and also through the education system by fostering an attitude of respect for rights of persons with disabilities in children from an early age. Article 9 talks about accessibility. Accessibility means making places, services, and information easy for everyone, including people with disabilities, to use and enjoy. Accessibility is usually understood in the terms of physical barriers only, but UNCRPD broadens our understanding. According to UNCRPD, accessibility applies to physical environment, which is buildings, parks, toilets, etc. Also to the transportation, both private and public, be it buses, trains, cars, etc. Accessibility must also be to information and communications, and this also includes technologies and systems. And it talks of accessibility to services like opening bank accounts. Accessibility must be ensured both in rural and urban areas, and it includes private entities as well that offer facilities and services which are open or provided to general public. To ensure accessibility, state parties will have to implement at least minimum standards and guidelines for the accessibility to public buildings like hospitals and schools and transport. They must provide signage in braille and easy to read and understand forms. They must provide guides, readers, and professional sign language interpreters, provide training for stakeholders on accessibility issues, provide appropriate forms of assistance and support to ensure access to information, and promote access to new information and communication technologies and systems. Accessibility is important for persons with disabilities to enable their independent living and full participation. We will understand these concepts in detail in next videos. In this video, we discuss the preamble and articles 1 to 9, article 1 purpose, article 2 were definitions of 5 terms, article 3 general principles, and article 4 general obligations of state parties. Article 5 talked of equality and non-discrimination, article 6 women with disabilities, and article 7 children with disabilities. Article 8 was on awareness raising, article 9 accessibility. Hope we were able to make the concepts simple for you to understand. Please like, share, subscribe. In the next videos, we'll continue discussing the remaining articles of the UNCRPD in a simple and easy to understand way. Thank you.